The unexpected guardian, the asteroid belt of Cygnus 9, wasn't where Mira Chen had planned to spend her 42nd birthday. Then again, life rarely followed her plans these days. Her cargo ship, the Wanderlust, drifted silently between massive rocks, its engines barely humming to conserve fuel. "Just another day in paradise," she muttered, running a hand through her short salt and pepper hair. The ship's computer chirped. "Anomalous energy signature detected on asteroid CY9011387. Mira straightened in her pilot's chair. "What kind of signature? Unknown pattern, possibly technological in origin." This was unusual. The Cygnus belt was supposed to be uninhabited, just rocks and ice, a shortcut for independents like her who preferred to avoid the Union's shipping lanes and their accompanying taxes. "Display location," she ordered. A holographic map appeared, highlighting a mid-sized asteroid about 20 minutes away at her current speed. Curiosity overtook caution. After all, salvage rights in unclaimed space were first come, first served. Maybe it was her birthday present from the universe. The Wanderlust approached slowly, scanners working overtime. The asteroid was larger than it had initially appeared, nearly 8 kilometers across, with a surprisingly stable rotation. As Mira guided her ship closer, she spotted what looked like artificial structures on the surface. "Well, I'll be damned," she whispered. Someone had built here, carving dwellings into the rock itself. But something was wrong. Several structures showed damage, not the slow decay of abandonment, but the violent scars of weapons fire. Mira docked, the Wanderlust in what appeared to be a small hangar, and donned her EVA suit. The asteroid had a thin atmosphere, breathable, but barely. She activated her helmet lights and stepped through the airlock. The settlement was eerily silent. Homes carved from stone stood empty, possessions scattered as if their owners had fled. In a hurry, scorch marks marred walls and floors. Something terrible had happened here, and recently. "Hello?" she called, her voice echoing through the empty corridors. "Anyone alive?" A crash from deeper in the settlement answered her. Mira's hand dropped to her sidearm, a practical necessity for a solo hauler in the outer reaches. She moved cautiously, toward the sound, keeping close to the walls. In what appeared to be a community gathering space, she found the source. 3 small figures huddled together behind an overturned table. They were clearly not human. Their skin had a faint blue luminescence, and they had large, almond-shaped eyes that seemed to glow with an inner light. Children. Alien children. The tallest one, still barely reaching Mira's waist, stood protectively in front of the others. It held a small tool like a weapon. "Easy," Mira said softly, holstering her gun and raising her hands. "I'm not here to hurt you," the child spoke, a series of melodic clicks and whistles that her translator couldn't decipher. Mira tapped the device, but it remained silent. These beings weren't in the database. She pointed to herself. "Mira," then gestured to them with an open palm. The tallest child seemed to understand. It pointed to itself. "Elior," then to the others. "Navi, Sola." Mira nodded, smiling. "Good, that's good." Over the next hour, through a mixture of gestures and drawings, Mira pieced together what had happened. A ship, Elior drew its shape as angular and black, had attacked their settlement without warning. Most of the population had been killed, or taken. These 3 had hidden in a storage compartment beneath the floor. "How long ago?" Mira asked, pointing to the drawing of the ship and then making a circle with her finger. Elior held up 4 fingers. 4 days? They'd been alone here for 4 days. Mira felt a weight settle in her chest. She wasn't equipped for this. Her ship barely had enough supplies for 1 human, let alone 3 alien children. The sensible thing would be to report this to the nearest Union outpost and let them handle it. But the nearest outpost was 3 days away, and something about the children's frightened eyes made her pause. The Union wasn't known for its compassion toward non-citizens. These kids would end up in a research facility or worse. Her thoughts were interrupted by a warning from her ship's AI through her comm link. Captain, vessel approaching. Configuration unknown. Mira stood. Can you get visual? Transmitting now. The image that appeared on her helmet display made her blood run cold. The ship was exactly as Elior had drawn it. Angular, black, with no visible windows or markings. It was slowing to match the asteroid's rotation. "They've come back," she whispered. Elior must have understood her expression. The child tugged at her sleeve and pointed urgently toward another passage. Mira nodded. "My ship." "Yes." They moved quickly. Through the tunnels, Mira carrying the smallest child, Sola, while Elior led the way with Navi in tow. The hangar was just ahead when the ground shook beneath them. The black ship had docked. "Run!" Mira shouted, though she knew they couldn't understand the word. Her tone was enough. They reached the Wanderlust just as Mira's sensors detected movement. At the far end of the hangar, figures in sleek black armor were emerging from a docking tube, weapons raised. Mira shoved the children inside her ship and slammed the hatch control. "Prime engines! Emergency departure!" The Wanderlust's systems sprang to life, but too slowly. Energy bolts struck the side of her ship, scorching the hull. The attackers were advancing. Mira jumped into the pilot's chair, manually overriding the launch sequence. "Hold on to something!" she shouted to the children, who had strapped themselves into cargo webbing. The ship lurched forward, scraping against the hangar ceiling before breaking free of the asteroid's weak gravity. More shots followed them, one clipping the starboard. "Thruster! Damage report!" Mira called. "Starboard thruster operating at 68% efficiency. Hull integrity at 92%, the AI responded. Not ideal, but they were still flying. Mira plotted a course through the densest part of the asteroid belt, hoping to lose their pursuer in the chaos of rocks and dust. The black ship followed, its sleek design allowing it to maneuver with unexpected agility. It fired again, this time with what appeared to be some kind of tractor beam. The Wanderlust shuddered as the energy field tried to lock onto it. Mira pushed the engines beyond safety parameters, diving toward a cluster of fast-moving asteroids. "This is either going to be brilliant or suicidal," she muttered, guiding her ship into a narrow gap between two massive rocks on a collision course. The black ship hesitated, then followed. Mira waited until the last possible moment before firing her port thrusters at maximum, sending the Wanderlust skimming along the surface of one asteroid. Behind them, the two giant rocks collided, catching the edge of the pursuing vessel. Black ship spun off course, venting atmosphere from a breach in its hull. It didn't explode, but it was clearly damaged enough to end the pursuit. For now. Mira allowed herself a moment of relief before turning to check on her passengers. The three children were huddled together in the cargo webbing, eyes wide but unharmed. "You're safe," she said, though they couldn't understand her words. She made a calming gesture with her hands. "Safe now." Later, as the Wanderlust limped toward the outer edge of the system, Mira watched the children sleep in a makeshift nest of cargo blankets. They had eaten some of her synthetic protein bars, thankfully compatible with their biology, and now rested peacefully for what was probably the first time in days. Mira studied the star chart, trying to decide their next move. The Union was out of the question. So were most of the independent colonies. Too many questions, too much risk. These children were clearly valuable to someone, and that made them dangerous to harbor. Yet as she watched them sleep, Mira knew she couldn't abandon them. Whatever they were, whoever was hunting them, they deserved protection. Her ship's sensors chimed softly. Analysis of the energy signatures from the children's settlement was complete. The patterns matched fragments of ancient data in her ship's archaeological database, a civilization that had supposedly disappeared 10,000 years ago. "The Lumina," she read from the screen, "known for their bioluminescent biology and rumored telepathic abilities, believed extinct since the third collapse." Mira looked back at the sleeping children. Not extinct, it seemed, just hiding. And now, she was their only protection against whoever wanted them eliminated. Well, she said to herself, happy birthday to me. She set course for the Kadath Nebula, a region notorious for its sensor-distorting properties. It would buy them time while she figured out what to do next. As the wanderlust accelerated, Mira felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Purpose. She was no longer just a cargo hauler drifting between jobs. She was a guardian now, with 3 lives depending on her. And somewhere in the vastness of space, a damaged black ship was sending a message to its masters. The last of the Lumina had been found, and someone was helping them escape. Powers awakened. 3 weeks into their journey, the Wanderlust floated silently in the heart of the Kadath Nebula. Multicolored gases swirled outside the viewports, creating an ever-changing light show that fascinated the children. Mira had learned much about her young passengers in that time. Though they still couldn't fully communicate, the children were remarkably adaptive. They had begun to mimic human speech, and Mira had picked up some of their musical language. Elior, the eldest at what Mira estimated to be equivalent to a human 9-year-old, had become her unofficial first mate. Navi, slightly younger, was fascinated by the ship's systems. Tiny Sola, barely a toddler by human standards, rarely left. Mira's side. Engine status? Mira asked. As she did every morning? Starboard thruster now at 82% efficiency following repairs, the ship's AI reported. Fuel reserves at 63%. Life support optimal. Their situation had stabilized, but they couldn't hide forever. The nebula's interference would only mask their position for so long, and supplies would eventually run low. Mira was checking the navigational charts when Elior appeared at her side, holding something cupped in small blue hands. The child made a soft, trilling sound to get her attention. "What have you got there, kiddo?" Mira asked. Elior slowly opened his hands. Inside lay a small, crystalline object that pulsed with inner light, synchronized to the child's heartbeat. It was beautiful, reminiscent of the bioluminescence in the children's skin, but far more intense. "What is this?" Mira asked, making their shared gesture for question. Elior placed the crystal in her hand and sang a sequence of notes that Mira had learned meant something like heart or core. The moment the crystal touched her skin, Mira gasped. Images flooded. Her mind, not memories, but something deeper. A planet with 2 suns, towering cities built from light and living crystal. A civilization that communed with stars and shaped energy with thought. She saw the black ships arriving. Destruction. Children being taken for their abilities. The Lumina hiding their young and their secrets across the galaxy, erasing knowledge of their own existence to protect what remained. The vision ended as suddenly as it had begun. Mira found herself on her knees, Elior's small hand on her shoulder, concern in those large, luminous eyes. "I'm okay," she managed, though her voice shook. She looked at the crystal, still pulsing in her palm. "This is from your home world?" Elior nodded, then pointed to each of the children in turn, then to the crystal, then made a gesture encompassing the entire ship. "It's inside all of you?" Mira guessed. Another nod. Elior took the crystal back and pressed it against his chest. To Mira's astonishment, the crystal seemed to sink into the child's body, disappearing beneath the skin, leaving only a faint glow where it had entered. "Well, that's not something you see every day," Mira muttered. The ship's alarm blared, breaking. "The moment. Proximity alert," the AI announced. "Multiple vessels detected on approach vector." Mira rushed to the controls. On the scanner, 5 ships were cutting through the nebula, their signatures matching the black vessel that had attacked them at the asteroid. How had they been found? "Battle stations," she ordered, an old military habit from her days in the Union Defense Force. "Prep for emergency jump." But as she initiated the jump sequence, the engine sputtered and died. What the hell? Detecting energy field disruption, the AI reported. Unknown technology. All propulsion systems offline. They were caught in some kind of stasis field. On the view screen, the black ships closed in, forming a circle around the Yi. Wanderlust. Options? Mira demanded. None available within current parameters, the AI replied with maddening calm. Mira turned to the children, who had gathered behind her chair, their skin pulsing with fear-induced luminescence. I won't let them take you, she promised, though she had no idea how to keep that promise. A transmission cut through the ship's communications, bypassing security protocols. A voice spoke, oddly modulated and emotionless. Surrender the Lumina offspring. Resistance is futile. You cannot comprehend what you protect? Mira hit the comm button. This is Captain Mira Chen of the independent vessel Wanderlust. You are attempting to kidnap children under my protection. Back off, or I'll be forced to defend them. A pause. Then, human. Your species is inconsequential. The Lumina must be contained. Their power cannot be allowed to propagate. I've seen what your containment looks like, Mira shot back. The answer is no. The communication cut off. Moments later, the Wanderlust shuddered as something locked onto its hull. Hull breach imminent in Section 4, the AI warned. Mira grabbed her sidearm. Get to the escape pod, she told the children, gesturing toward the rear of the ship. Elior shook his head vehemently and grabbed Mira's free hand. The child's skin suddenly grew intensely bright, and Mira felt a surge of energy travel up her arm. The other children joined, forming a circle, each touching her. The crystal that Elior had shown her emerged from each child's chest, floating in front of them, creating a pattern in the air. Power unlike anything Mira had ever felt coursed through, her body settling just beneath her skin like armor made of light. The hull breach alarm sounded. The attackers were cutting through. What did you do to me? Mira whispered. Elior simply pointed to the hatch where the intruders would soon emerge, then made a pushing motion. Understanding somehow, Mira stepped forward, raising her hands toward the hatch. Energy gathered in her palms, visible as swirling light. The hatch blew inward. 3 figures in black armor stepped through, weapons raised. Mira released the energy. A wave of pure force erupted from her hands, throwing the intruders back through the breach and sealing it with crystallized energy. How did I? She began, staring at her hands, now glowing with the same bioluminescence as the children's skin. More alarms. The black ships were charging weapons. Elior tugged her toward the navigation console and placed a small blue hand on the controls. Symbols appeared on the screen. Coordinates. You want me to go there? Mira asked. All 3 children nodded in unison. Well, our engines are still dead, so unless you've got another trick up your... Before she could finish, the children joined hands again, their crystals emerging to form a perfect triangle. Energy flowed from them into the ship's systems. The engines roared to life, but different somehow. Fuller, cleaner, more powerful. Navigation systems online, the AI reported, sounding almost surprised. Unknown energy source detected. Power at 300% of maximum capacity. The black ships opened fire. Bolts of dark energy struck the Wanderlust, but instead of penetrating the hull, they were absorbed into a field of light that had formed around the vessel. Get us out of here, Mira ordered. Use the coordinates. The Wanderlust surged forward, faster than it had ever moved. The nebula blurred around them, and then they were in clear space, but only for a moment. The stars themselves seemed to stretch and bend, and suddenly they were somewhere else entirely. The view screen showed a small, blue-green planet orbiting a yellow star, a place Mira didn't recognize from any star chart. Where are we? She asked. Elior made the gesture for home. Mira checked the navigation system. That's impossible. We've traveled over 8,000 light-years in seconds. Yet here they were, approaching a planet that had supposedly been lost for millennia. The homeworld of the Lumina. As they descended into the atmosphere, Mira saw that the planet wasn't untouched. Signs of the same destruction that had claimed. The asteroid settlement were visible from orbit, ruined cities, scorched landscapes. But in scattered locations, particularly around the poles, structures remained intact. The ship landed automatically in a valley surrounded by crystalline formations that resembled the towers Mira had seen in her vision. As the engines powered down, she noticed other ships nearby, vessels of various designs, all showing signs of hasty repairs and long journeys. "We're not alone," she murmured. The children were practically vibrating with excitement. When the hatch opened, they rushed out onto their ancestral soil, their skin glowing brighter than Mira had ever seen. Mira followed more cautiously, her hand never far from her weapon. The air was breathable but strange, heavy with energy that made her skin tingle. Figures emerged from the crystal structures, more lumina, adults with the same blue luminescent skin but taller and more ethereal than the children. They approached slowly, as if hardly daring to believe what they saw. One stepped forward, regarding Mira with eyes that seemed to contain galaxies. "You brought them home," the Lumina said, in perfect, unaccented standard. "You protected them when we could not." "They protected me too," Mira replied, glancing at her still glowing hands. The Lumina nodded. "They have shared their essence with you. Such a gift has not been given to an outsider in 10,000 years. Other survivors were gathering now. Mira could see perhaps 100 in total, along with a handful of beings from other species, allies perhaps, or others who had helped rescue Lumina children. "The harvesters will come," the elder Lumina said, following Mira's gaze to the sky. "They always do. They seek our essence to power their technologies, to extend their lifespans beyond natural limits. They have hunted us to the edge of extinction." "The black ships," Mira said. "Who are they?" "Once they were like us, beings of light and thought, but they chose a different path, embracing void energy, consuming rather than creating. Now they are little more than shells, sustained by what they steal from others. A shimmering disruption appeared in the atmosphere above them. 3 black ships emerged, larger than the ones that had pursued the wanderlust. "They followed us," Mira realized. "They track the essence," the elder explained. "And now you carry it too." Mira looked at the children who had joined a group of other young Lumina. For the first time since she'd found them, they looked truly happy. "Then I'll help you fight," she said. The legend rises. The harvesters' ships hung in the sky like a blight, their black hulls absorbing the sunlight. On the ground, the remaining Lumina gathered in the central crystal chamber, a vast space inside the largest standing structure, illuminated by their collective bioluminescence. Mira stood with the elder, who had introduced himself as Thyle, watching as the children were reunited with distant relatives and friends. Elior, Navi, and Sola had found an elder who seemed to be their grandmother, judging by the emotional reunion. "How many survived?" Mira asked quietly. 117 adults. 43 children, including the 3 you saved," Thala replied. "From a civilization that once numbered in the billions." "And the others? The non-Lumina?" "Guardians? Like you. Those who found our children and chose to protect them despite the danger." Thale gestured to a group near the eastern wall, a collection of beings from at least 6 different species, all showing the faint luminescence that Mira now bore in her own skin. "What happens now?" she asked, eyeing the ship still visible through the crystal ceiling. "Now we make our stand," Thale said simply. "For generations, we have hidden scattered our children across the stars, hoping some would survive. But the harvester's reach grows longer. There are few places left to hide. You're going to fight? With what? I count maybe 20 adults capable of combat, and these guardians of yours don't exactly look like a military force. Thala's expression remained serene. We will fight with what the Lumina have always possessed, light against void. And now, we have you. Me? I'm just a cargo hauler with a glowy new skin condition. You are more than that, Mira Chen. The children did not merely share their essence with you. They recognized something in you. A resonance, a capacity for connection that few outsiders possess. Before Mira could ask what that meant, alarms sounded throughout the chamber. On a large crystal display, they could see landing craft descending from the harvester ships. They're not bombarding us from orbit, Mira noted. They want to take you alive. Our essence is more potent when extracted from living tissue, Thala confirmed grimly. Death diminishes it. The Lumina moved with practiced efficiency, adults guiding children to the central platform, while others took up positions around the chamber. The Guardians joined them, each glowing with varying intensity. What can I do? Mira asked. Thala led her to the center of the chamber, where the children were gathering. You have carried the essence longer than any other Guardian present. The children have chosen you as their primary protector. I'm not sure that's a good... She was interrupted by Elior, who broke away from his grandmother to take Mira's hand. The child's skin brightened, and again Mira felt that surge of power. The essence responds to emotion, to will, Thala explained. The stronger your connection to what you protect, the more powerful it becomes. Outside, the sound of energy. Weapons grew closer. The harvesters had landed and were assaulting the crystal fortress. Elior pulled Mira toward a pedestal in the exact center of the chamber. Atop it sat a larger version of the crystals the children carried, a massive, multifaceted gemstone that pulsed with inner light. The heart of Lumina, Thala said reverently. The last one remaining. It is what the harvesters truly seek, the source of all our abilities. The crystal responded to Mira's proximity, glowing brighter as she approached. Elior released her hand and nodded encouragingly. What am I supposed to do? She asked. The answer came not from Thale or Elior, but from within her own mind, a voice that seemed composed of many, speaking as one. Touch the heart. Complete the circuit. Become the conduit. Mira reached out, her fingers hovering over the crystal's surface. This felt bigger than her, bigger than protecting 3 children. This was about standing against extinction itself. She placed her hand on the heart. Power exploded through her, not just from the crystal but from every Lumina in the chamber. Their collective essence flowed into her, through her, transforming her into something beyond human. Her skin became translucent, light radiating from within her bones. Her eyes saw spectrum beyond normal vision. Her consciousness expanded to encompass the entire fortress, then the valley, then the planet itself. The harvesters breached the outer defenses. Mira could see them clearly now, hollow beings in black armor, their bodies sustained by stolen energy, their eyes void of light or life. They moved with cold precision, cutting down the few Lumina defenders who stood in their way. Guide us, came the voice. We are the light. You are the lens. Understanding flowed into her mind. The Lumina weren't warriors by nature. They were creators, shapers, builders. But their essence could be focused, directed, weaponized, if guided by a will trained in combat. Mira had been a soldier once, before turning to cargo hauling. She remembered the discipline, the strategies, the movements. Through her expanded awareness, she reached out to every defender, Lumina, and Guardian alike. She showed them where to stand, how to move, when to release their energy. The harvesters entered the main chamber, dozens of them, weapons raised. Mira lifted her hands. Every defender mimicked her movement. Energy gathered, condensed, focused through her intent. Release. Light erupted from every defender simultaneously, perfectly coordinated. It struck the harvesters like a physical force, shattering armor and exposing the emptiness beneath. Where the light touched, the void retreated. But the harvesters were numerous and determined. They advanced despite their losses, firing weapons that absorbed light and turned it to darkness. Several lumina fell. The connection weakened. Mira felt it like a physical pain, each loss diminishing the whole. The harvesters reached the inner circle. Children screamed. The heart pulsed erratically. More, Mira thought desperately. We need more. In response, the heart itself began to change. It rose from its pedestal, hovering before Mira. Fragments broke off, drifting toward each child, each defender. The crystal was distributing itself, becoming a network rather than a single point of vulnerability. The harvesters recoiled, their sensors overloading from the sudden dispersal of energy. In their momentary confusion, Mira struck. She gathered the power now flowing freely through the chamber and shaped it into a wave of pure creation, the opposite of the void energy, the I. Harvesters wielded. Where it touched them, their empty shells could not contain the sudden influx of life force. One by one, they collapsed, their armor falling away to reveal nothing inside. Outside, the same energy expanded outward, engulfing the harvester ships. Their dark hulls began to crack, light pouring from within as their stolen power was released and transformed. The battle was over in minutes. Where the harvesters had stood, only empty armor remained. Their ships hung in the sky, now glowing with reclaimed light. Slowly, the power flowing through Mira began to recede. Her awareness contracted, back to normal human limits. The glow in her skin dimmed to a faint shimmer. She collapsed to her knees, exhausted beyond measure. Eleor was immediately at her side, small blue hands supporting her shoulders. "Is it over?" she managed to ask. Thele approached, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. "Yes and no. You have defeated this force, but others will come. The harvesters are vast in number, spread across many systems." "Then we need to be ready," Mira said, struggling to her feet. "We need allies, defenses." "We have something more," Thele said. "We have hope. And we have you, the first human to ever wield the heart of Lumina." The days that followed were a blur of activity. The dispersed fragments of the heart did not return to their original form. Instead, they remained with those who had received, them including Mira. Each fragment contained a portion of the whole's power, less concentrated but also less vulnerable to being captured or destroyed. The Lumina began rebuilding, their natural abilities accelerating the process. Crystal towers rose from ruins. Gardens bloomed where scorched earth had been. The valley became a beacon of light visible from orbit, and word spread. Ships arrived. Daily. Survivors from distant colonies, allies of the Lumina, and others who had suffered under the harvesters' predation. They brought resources, technology, and most importantly, fighting strength. 1 month after the battle, Mira stood on a balcony overlooking the valley, now transformed into a thriving settlement. Eleor stood beside her, taller already, growing rapidly now that he was home. "You could stay," the child said, his standard much improved through daily practice. "This is your home too now." Mira touched the crystal fragment embedded in her chest. AI, permanent part of her now, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. "I have a different job to do," she replied softly. The Wanderlust had been transformed as well, enhanced with Lumina technology. It was faster, stronger, nearly undetectable to conventional sensors. A perfect vessel for what Mira had in mind. You're going to find the others, Elior said. It wasn't a question. Mira nodded. The harvesters have been hunting your people for millennia. They have bases, outposts, harvesting centers, and they still hold Lumina captives. You'll free them? I'll try, but I'll need help. She looked at the fragment in her chest. I'll need to find others like me, guardians willing to fight. You'll succeed, Elior said with absolute confidence. The heart chose you for a reason. Later that day, Mira prepared for departure. The Wanderlust was loaded with supplies, its systems optimized for long-range stealth operations. A small crew of volunteers, 2 Lumina and 3 Guardians from other species, had joined her mission. As she completed the pre-flight checks, a commotion near the ship caught her attention. The entire settlement had gathered, hundreds of beings, forming a passage from the central tower to the landing pad. Thale approached, leading the assembly. "We thought you might depart without ceremony," he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "That would not be fitting for the guardian of the heart." "I'm not big on titles," Mira replied. "Nevertheless, they will know your name. Across the stars, those who suffer under the harvesters will whisper it. Mira Chen, who stood when others fell, who protected the last of the Lumina, who turned back the void." The assembled beings began to glow, their combined light creating a pathway that stretched from the ship into the sky itself, a beacon that would guide her back no matter how far she traveled. Elior stepped forward, presenting her with a small, crystal pendant. "So, you remember why you fight," he said. Mira knelt and embraced the child who had changed her life. "I couldn't forget if I tried." As the Wanderlust lifted off, following the path of light into the stars, Mira felt the fragment, in her chest pulse with renewed purpose. She had entered the Cygnus Belt, a cargo hauler looking for salvage. She emerged a guardian, a protector, a legend in the making. The void was vast, but light traveled far, and now that light had a focus. A human woman who had risked everything for alien children, and in doing so had become the hope of a galaxy.